Hello, Friday types. Stevie Coyle here, Mighty Fine Guitars, Friday Noontime Webcast, Lafayette, California. I think that's all the essentials right there. Making sure that you're all there and that I'm there too. Welcome. Looks like yes. It looks like we could come up with that camera a little bit. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe something more like that. Try that out. See how we do. That's a little better. Top of my head's cut off. Yeah. Do we care? We do not. Wow. What I have to show you today is quite remarkable. It is a 2004 Eric Schoenberg OM-45. A real tribute to the Martin OM-45 Appointments and Woods guitar. Oh, and here it is. Ah. And the light shines down and the angels sing. And it sounds like that. Thought I had to shout over that, but apparently not. Running a little bit late today, so sorry about that. People in the shop, which is great. Come on in. If you're anywhere in the Tri-Cities area of Lafayette, Moraga, Morinda, that's the La Morinda that you hear about. It's Lafayette, Moraga, and Orinda. And right downtown in Lafayette, California. Oh, that's Brazilian rosewood, that rich, chocolatey, coffee-like. Notice all the analogies and similes and metaphors. That's what you got to do with sound. Two sounds, I'm told, and I think it's right, that are native to sound, two terms that are native to sound, and they are louder and quieter. Even when you say softer, it's an analogy. Sounds aren't soft. They're quieter, but they're not soft like a pillow is soft. So we resort, like the wine people do, to using analogies, similes, metaphors, comparisons, an image that will evoke your intention. Perhaps not terribly accurate, because what does a chocolatey sound like? That, perhaps? Speaking of which, how is the sound, by the way? Slightly different setup today, so do let me know how sounds are happening here. Let me say hello to whoever's here. Oh, for whatever reason, having a little trouble getting to all y'all. I may have to answer your questions and stuff later on because I do not see the usual method for getting to your comments and questions. It's all right. I'm going to trust and hope. I'm going to hope and trust that this is actually going out on the wire. And we'll see about that. Right. Let me play it for you. Sustain and depth. And you can hear the overtones, the low fundamental tone, picking up overtones as it generates. This wrist. Sustain is one of the things that Brazilian rosewood does for you. The other is that rich, low mid-range as well. It sort of underpins everything. I should tell you, designed by Eric Schoenberg. Now we're calling this a Schoenberg guitar, and it is. Eric designed this very much after it's a really faithful reproduction of an OM-45, a Martin OM-45. But built by a wonderful builder called Bruce Sexauer. That's remarkable. It's set up beautifully. It's been plekked recently. Brazilian rosewood, as I've been telling you. That's crazy good Brazilian. You see a lot of very figured Brazilian rosewood, but the stuff that is more highly prized, certainly visually, well, perhaps visually, but certainly sonically, one or the other, is the straight grain stuff. Came from higher up on the tree. The other stuff comes from low on the tree that perhaps had already had the top of the tree cut off of it, and then the stump, it's a terribly pejorative term, but the stump was rescued after that and cut up into whatever it was cut up into, furniture, guitar backs and sides. And the top of this is Engelmann spruce, European spruce. Let me read you a little chit that I have here. The first of the Schoenberg Deluxes after the transition to California, built by Bruce Sexauer. The Schoenberg website says, our unabashed emulation of one of the most beautiful guitars in the world. Since we have one of the originals, we're able to make ours as close to the original as possible. Eric has had at least one and I think a few OM-45s go through his shop. And they are highly, highly prized. Other guitars of the same era, 20s and 30s, 30s in particular, other models are not as highly prized. Things smaller than an OM, a double O, a single O, a 1, a 2, any of those, for whatever reason have not caught up yet. But the OM, in no small part because of Eric Schoenberg and his pressuring, to put it kindly, his suggesting strongly to Martin that the best guitar they ever built was the OM size guitar, kind of the does-it-all great size guitar. This was because Martin had been building frantically dreadnought guitars, excuse me, because they thought, and the market seemed to indicate at the time, that that's what people wanted, was dreadnought guitars, big old guitars, because that's what we saw on the covers of all those albums. Thank You, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young further popularized the growing interest in big-bodied, loud, fully bassy guitars. But a lot of those big guitars are kind of too big for people of a certain vintage, who perhaps have gotten rounder as they've gotten older. Perhaps. And it's been Eric's contention that this size and this model, the OM, is kind of the do-it-all great size guitar. The body size is the same as the triple O, kind of goes dreadnought, quadruple O. There are quadruple O's, also called the M series. Triple O and OM, same body size, but different neck lengths, scale lengths, and fret widths. Typically, an OM is 1 3/4 across the nut instead of 1 11/16, which is narrower. And the scale length is longer, 25.4 inches, the scale length being the distance between the nut and the bridge saddle. 25.4 instead of 24.9. So, slightly longer scale, which has advantages, especially if you do drop tunings. The low strings will tend to sharp out less and will stand up better to hard playing and drop tunings without the strings rattling on the fret. Short scale guitars are typically better for blues players, people who want a light touch in the left hand, particularly a light touch, and who might be bending the strings more. The strings get bendier as the scale gets shortened at a given pitch. Well, I see there are 14 of you out there, and I have to assume that the sounds are going out, even though I can't seem to retrieve you. I'm going to try bagging out here and coming back in. How about that? Let me try that. Cancel out there, come back here, see if this gives me access to you. No, the Facebook gods are not with us today. If you got comments and questions, go ahead and post them. I'll get to them afterwards, after we conclude here. I'll play this a little bit more for you. I'll play it some for you, but gabbing. Singy in the high end and round in the bass. Oh, that's delicious. And it's pretty too. It's got pearl all over it. The binding, top, sides, back, everything. 45 style. As the numbers go up in Martin guitar designations, they typically get fancier with more stuff on them, more salad. Very powerful. This is one of those guitars where you can play back of everything it can do and still get lots of sound out of it. was explained to me once, you know, if the sound is in there, you can get it out. If it's not in there, you can't get it out. But if it's in there and you can let it out and it'll be huge and full, you can play back from that and know that you have that in reserve, which is a lovely feeling. And this is where the setup comes in. Often when a guitar is light and low, light gauge strings and low action, it can be kind of buzzy on the frets. You got to be careful not to rattle the guitar against the strings against the frets. This guitar, having been plekked, put on a Plek machine, P-L-E-K, capital P, small L, small E, small K, sounds great, feels great. The Plek machine looks at a given guitar and says, I want to do this and this and this, I want to mill these frets, I want you to do this, I'll do that, and it comes out with a great setup. Plekking feels great. I would love to think that human beings can do as good a job, and they can, but a Plek can do it faster and with extreme accuracy and do the kind of the grunt work for you. Wow. I realize I'm hanging on these kind of big open note chords here. But they just sound so great with those big open strings there. We do something closed. Delicious. Folks, I wish I could gab with you right now. Oh, it's got a Bags pickup in it as well. I wanted to point that out. Anything else? If I have treble, it's just been plekked and had a Bags anthem installed. Ready to go. You could take this out to a gig. You could take the Bags out. It's an easy de-install as well if you wanted to go with just kind of the pristine guitar. But this is... I'd play this out. I'd get a really good case for it. It comes with a really good case, but I'd get a super fancy good case for it. One of them Vices nut cases, maybe. I think that's how it's pronounced. Anybody here can solve that mystery for me? I'd be obliged. V-I-S-E-S-N-U-T. Can it possibly be pronounced Vices nut? Or is it Vices nu? There are no umlaut involved, so I don't know. Vices nut. Vices nut. Plays great, feels great. It's going to be around $16,000 for this bad boy. Give you one more look at the Brazilian rosewood, primo Brazilian. All of the 45 style appointments, designed by Eric Schoenberg after the Martin OM-45 Orchestra Model 45, and built by Bruce Sexauer. And there it is. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll be back next week with another fabulous guitar, so tune in, kids. And those of you in the Bay Area, 2 shows. Tonight, playing with the Hellman family, Marco and the Polos, over at the Back Room in Berkeley. And tomorrow night, Glenn Houston and I, the Quitters, are playing at Luigi's Deli, which is a listening room, apparently. Sounds like a deli, but apparently it's a listening room, too. It's two. So... hope to see one place or the other, perhaps here next week. And do stop into the shop when you can. Heart of downtown Lafayette. Mighty fine guitarist Stevie Coyle signing off Friday Noontime Webcast. Thanks for tuning in. So long, y'all.